I thought you hated tea, brother. He replied, yeah, it's just hot water with some color to it. Of course I despise it, but I'll feel left out if I am the only one with no drink. She asked, then shall I have the maid bring something? Would fruit water be all right? He said, tea is fine. No need to go out of our way to leak intelligence, is there? She responded, if we act today, the maids won't have time to relay information back to their respective houses. He added, we should still be careful though, right? Girls tend to blab. Especially when it comes to the palace servants, those women can send reports home at an alarming speed. Rena smiled as she poured a cup of tea and offered it to Zanak. He said, HMPH, so you've already tested the maid info network? She asked, whatever do you mean? He said, never mind. With that, the prince took a gulp of tea and stuck his tongue out. It's bitter. She asked, but your highness, what did you want to discuss so early in the morning? Of course, I would make haste when you summon me no matter the hour, but thank you. The situation is urgent, so I'll be frank. I'd like you to lend me your wisdom. After a light cough to clear her throat, she got right to the point. Marquis Reven's almond-shaped eyes widened, containing a shade of surprise, but he immediately regained his composure, and the trace of emotion vanished. My wisdom? If it is a question your highness cannot answer, I am not sure I will be able to. I believe you have what it takes. No one at court is as skilled as you in these matters. The Marquis exchanged glances with the prince. Rena was barely involved in any power struggles at all, so what matters could she possibly be referring to? The Marquis smiled in a relaxed way. It was evident that if he forced himself to guess now, his thoughts would lead him in a strange direction. He judged there was no harm in waiting until he had more information. What sort of advice do you need? I'd like to ask you, since you reign the dominant power in the shadows of the King's faction, or rather, the one leading the King's faction from the shadows, if it would be possible for you to mobilize your side's soldiers. The Marquis looked like a spell had detonated directly in front of him. Anyone there would have been surprised. Reven's expression rarely changed so drastically, but such a reaction was only to be expected. If any other noble had heard what Rena said, they would have laughed. It was actually true, but the Marquis had been keeping it secret. Reven only appeared to be flitting between the two factions. In reality, he was the one contributing the most to the King's faction. He led it behind the scenes. And he kept a lid on the internal conflict that threatened to split the kingdom in two. Without Reven's efforts, their nation surely would have already fallen. Zanak gasped softly. He had always had a hunch that Rena was a monster in human clothing, possessed of an unnatural intellect. But how had she arrived at the truth, with virtually no one serving as her eyes, hands, or feet? She was practically locked up in the palace. Not a soul in the kingdom besides Zanak knew the truth. The two of them simultaneously realized she could be bluffing, but they quickly dismissed that idea. Rena was acting like she was stating the obvious. They had met enough schemers, so she would have to be quite an actress to fool them. But if she wasn't acting, then what was the foundation for her assertions? Rena realized she needed to explain further. Ignoring Reven's surprise, she continued talking in an easygoing way. Well, really, I should have asked one of the other two great nobles in the King's faction, but Blumrush is leaking intelligence to the Empire, right? So then how? Wait one moment, the Marquis's eyes popped open. He spoke louder than Zanak's hoarse murmur. Marquis Blumrush, you know about him, right? Isn't that why there's a limit on the amount of important information he's allowed to handle? Both of them stared at Rena, speechless. Her earlier serene expression hadn't changed a bit. She wondered under her breath, or maybe I am wrong, why Reven was so shocked he forgot to address her properly. Everything she said was true. It was known only to Reven and Zanak that one of the 6 great nobles, one on the King's faction side, Marquis Blumrush, was betraying the kingdom. The reason they tolerated a traitor in their ranks was their greater interest in not disrupting the balance between the two factions. Reven had frantically concealed the situation from the noble's faction. He skillfully maneuvered so no sensitive intelligence would leak to the Empire. Up until now, he had believed he was pulling it off flawlessly. Reven had told Zanak. So how did the caged little bird get all the way to Rena? Thinking about it gave Zanak goosebumps. How did you figure all that out? If you just listen a little bit, it's obvious. And the maids talk sometimes. How reliable was maid gossip though? Reven didn't believe it was possible. But a memory he had of her convinced him what she was saying, that she inferred everything from maid talk was true. She once made a jewel necklace out of a pile of trash, by selecting only the prettiest pieces. So are you a monster? A fitting assessment of such a woman escaped his lips. Although it had surely been loud enough for her to hear, Renner only smiled, and didn't he reprimand him for his rudeness. Revan cast away the presumptions he had held until this point. The woman before him was someone he should treat as an equal. He was sure his memories were not mistaken. Understood. We can speak frankly. You don't mind, right, Prince? Seeing Zanuck nod, Revan straightened up and looked straight at Renner. His attitude resembled Gazef S when he was preparing to fight. But before we begin, I'd like to talk to the real Princess Renner. What do you mean real? Renner asked innocently, puzzled. I saw a girl a long time ago. Her sophisticated insight was far greater than mine. The things she said were immeasurably valuable. Of course, it took quite a while for me to realize their value and significance. The room had fallen silent. The Marquis's monologue hung in the air. She was a girl who murmured strange things, or so some people thought, but when I saw her, I felt for a moment like I had seen something dangerous. Something dangerous? Renner asked quietly. Yes, I only caught a glimpse, so I assumed it was perhaps a figment of my imagination. But her hollow eyes suggested she didn't care about the world at all, that she despised everything. Revan shrugged, as if to ward off a sudden chill in the room. After a while she appeared again, and she acted like the child she was. So I thought I must have seen wrong. Your Royal Highness, I wanted to ask if I have indeed been cleverly deceived all this time. Their gazes met a sly battle between two entwined snakes. Suddenly, the spark left Renner's eyes. Revan smiled faintly, feeling as though he had finally spied something he'd once seen long ago. I never thought it was so. Witnessing his innocently smiling little sister turn into a horrifying monster, Zanuck broke out in a cold sweat. He always had a vague idea that beneath her beauty she concealed this ugliness. His only mistake was guessing that she desired authority for herself, or that she wanted to destroy the entire kingdom for sticking her in this cage. She wasn't like him, she was something else. Just as I thought, Your Royal Highness, Princess Renner. Those eyes are exactly the ones I saw back then. So you've been acting all this time? No, that is not it, Marquis Revan. I wasn't acting, I was satisfied. Are your soldier Climb? Yes, it is thanks to my Climb. Wow, to think that boy was capable of changing, Your Highness. I thought he was nothing more than a child. But what is he to you, Climb? She stared into the air. How much is he worth to me? She tried to find the words that could express the answer. Renner Thayer Chardalan Ryle Vayself. To describe her in a word, golden. People attributed it to her dazzling beauty, but not many knew that she possessed abilities that far outshined her looks. Her powers were thought, insight, analysis, innovation, comprehension. Every aspect of her mental capacity had developed to an abnormal degree. In short, she was a genius. Clearly the gods themselves had lavished her with these gifts. It seemed to be the only possible explanation. Her ideas, apparently composed of flashes of inspiration, were the result of considering countless fragments of information with her shocking perception. There probably wasn't a single other person who could match Renner on the entire continent. Or if there was someone who was her equal, they wouldn't be human. Still, even among races that surpassed humans, beings able to rival her were extremely rare. In Nazarick, Albedo, the captain of the Guardians, was near her level. Albedo could oversee all the minions on every level. Demiurge was also near her level. He possessed a wealth of demonic wisdom. He had a particular gift for strategy, both domestic and foreign, essentially any facet of nation building. But humans often think of things only from their own point of view. In that sense, maybe it was all regular people could do to label her as eccentric or an oddball, but Renner had one flaw. She didn't understand why other people couldn't comprehend what she could. If she had had a peer, maybe she would have been able to realize she was gifted. Then things might have turned out differently, but that was not what happened. Instead, a little girl expressed thoughts no one else could comprehend. They found her frightening. Since she was incredibly cute, she was not terribly disliked. She still received love to a degree. But the fact that no one could understand her had a massive impact on her psychological development. Slowly, over time, she began to warp. Perhaps calling it the isolation of genius would sound nicer. The stress of an environment where no one could keep up with her was intense. For a long time, she couldn't keep her food down. She grew thinner and thinner. People who knew her back then believed she wouldn't last long. Without her puppy, that probably would have been true. And even if she had overcome her trials, a monstrous being might have come into existence. This being would have seen the world only in numbers, and it would have enacted horrific sufferings upon the few for the sake of the many. It had been a whim. One rainy day she decided to take an escort and go outside for a change of scenery. She came upon a half-dead puppy. The animal gazed at its soon-to-be owner. What serious eyes, she thought at the time. His eyes naively revered her. She was used to the stares of those who found her odd. She was used to the looks of people who found her cute, but she couldn't understand what this puppy's eyes held. To her, these spirit-filled eyes embodied hate, amazement, joy, emotion, and humanity. Yes, in those eyes she found a fellow human. The puppy the girl picked up grew into a boy and then a man. As a pup, as a boy, and as a man, his eyes pierced her with a blindingly innocent gaze, but this no longer pained her. Because of those eyes, she became able to converse with others somewhat normally as a person. She gained the ability to pass her time with creatures that were severely inferior to her. And now, thanks to Climb's simple existence, Rena's world was complete. Climb, yes, if I could be with him, and if I could keep him chained up so he couldn't go anywhere, that would be even better. The atmosphere in the room froze over. Nazarick was shocked, since they were at least partially of the same blood. But even Reven was astonished. She had thought they would listen to the sweet, childish words of the woman said to be the most beautiful in the kingdom. But considering that real Rena had planned to reveal herself, the talk most likely wouldn't have been so syrupy. This was still beyond anything he could have imagined. How much simpler things would have been if she were only suffering from love that crossed class boundaries. What she had just said was beyond insane. I see. So this is your true nature. When we were kids, you didn't seem any stranger than a shirt buttoned one spot off. But now I understand how abnormal you really are. Really, brother? I don't think I've done anything particularly strange, Rena replied. Why don't you just keep him, your highness? The Marquis asked. If you will, it may be difficult without someone supporting you. Yes, and it would be difficult to manage while keeping up appearances as a princess. And it's no good if I force him to look at me. I want to keep him like a dog, wrapped in chains, with those eyes just like they are now. One would be hard-pressed to find people who enjoyed hearing talk about the fetishes of others. Reven had encountered Rena's thoughts as a woman, and he wanted to regain some distance. Keep him like a dog, so you're not in love with him then? Rena eyed him as if to say, what in the world are you talking about? I adore him. I just really adore those eyes. And I love the way he follows me around like a loyal hound. Sorry, I don't get that at all. That's not love, little sister. I believe one can argue there is more than one type of love. My apologies, but I can quite comprehend, and I am not asking you to. As long as you know that I love him, how much I adore him, that's enough. She's crazy. Reven thought her personality was warped, but he hadn't realized she was distorted in quite this way. Faced with this woman and her abnormal psychological makeup, the two men exchanged glances. What do we do now? They had already learned that the princess was in love with a soldier, which had the potential to rock the kingdom, but they felt like they had stumbled upon an even wilder discovery. Well, fetishes are not a fetish. It's the purest love, she interrupted the Marquis with a rebuke. He suppressed the urge to argue, well, love, yes, but at present, the idea of you and Sir Climb being together seems impossible, and what's more, if word of it got out, you'd be married off to a noble right away. Barbaro is under the influence of the nobles' faction, so I am sure he'd choose one of them. It would probably be one of the first jobs on his list, even if he were to inherit the throne right now. I would bet good coin it's already been decided. There's a man who looks at me like I am already his, the one hoping for your hand in return for joining the nobles' faction. But climb would be impossible anyway. Even if he obtained peerage, he'd be a baron at most. Even if the court made an exception and granted him something higher, I still don't think he'd be allowed to marry the princess. I am well aware of that. With the current state of the kingdom, it would probably be impossible no matter what method we tried. Nazarick grinned. This was exactly where he wanted her. So, how about we make a deal? If I become king, I'll get you and Climb together. It's a deal. That was fast. Are you sure? I have no reason to refuse. Of all the gambles I could make, this one has the best odds. I've been meaning to move the conversation in this direction ever since you entered my room with Marquis Reven. So you planned for this all along? He responded with a rueful smile, but his expression was far removed from the emotions he felt. He always considered his little sister cleverer than him, but he hadn't expected to find himself dancing in the palm of her hand. When he thought about it, there was no reason for her to reveal so much. But if her intent had been to elicit that response from him, it made sense. In his head he cursed, "You monster. And so, brother, or rather Marquis Revan, I have a favor to ask." "What might that be?" "You have a child, if I am not mistaken." "Yes, he is still just 5 years old." "What about him?" The face of his precious son came to mind. He had to make an effort to keep his cheeks from relaxing into a smile. He knew the reason for Zanack's sour expression next to him, so he forced himself to hold back the boasting. "Please give him to me as my fiancé." "No, I'll never hand him over to a woman like you," he barked instantly. Then, looking between Zanack's half-closed eyes and Rena's unchanging smile, he realized his mistake and blushed. "I beg your pardon, your Royal Highnesses." I was a bit startled. He cleared his throat once and readdressed Rena. "Your Royal Highness, do excuse me, but may I inquire as to the reason? You must know why." "Simone, Rena, you're the one who started this, so you marry my son and have a child with Climb," the Marquis interrupted. "My son has a child with the woman he loves, a child who would be my actual grandchild, and it could be my successor. You would pretend to be its mother. Is that it? It's not a bad idea. You'd get to have a child by the man you love, and my family would marry into royal blood, albeit duplicitously. I'm not interested in rank or inheritance. So if my real child could be set up financially to some extent, I wouldn't make your house raise it. I'll go ahead and trust you there." So if someone with Marquis Revan's authority proposes a marriage, Dad won't be able to ignore it, the prince mused. The Marquis gets some royal blood for his family, and you get to be with the man you love. Plus, I'll have gained your support. No losers. If any one of us betrays the others, we all take the fall. A perfect plan. I still kind of can't believe you suggesting this in front of me. Oh, but brother, I want to guarantee that you an ally. And wouldn't you hate to find out about it after the fact? He didn't have a response, because she was right. And a plan in which the parties understood one another's weaknesses couldn't be refused. Rena may have been a little eccentric, but the kingdom needed someone with her superior intellect. Okay, that's enough about us. What's this about a run-in with the 8 Fingers? I heard you captured the head of the slave trafficking division. Yes, it's as Climb told you. I want to attack them swiftly before they go to ground. We got some intelligence telling us where the 8 Fingers are operating inside the capital, so the plan is to conduct the raid sometime today. There's just one problem: we don't have enough soldiers. I summoned you because I want to borrow your strength, Marquis Revan. Revan and Zanack shared a look. The prince spoke. "So where will the raid take place?" The pair of them took turns reading the parchment and translation Rena handed them. "This is confirmed?" asked the Marquis. "Of course. I had Lachius and her team check it out. The report just came in, and these locations are definitely owned by the 8 Fingers. The problem is that they were all situated on land owned by different nobles. It wasn't quite an issue of extraterritoriality, but marching in would mean picking fights with the nobles openly. That shouldn't be a problem. If we find anything related to the 8 Fingers, we can use that to put pressure on the nobles. And even if we don't find anything, we'll still find something, I see. We know how to get rid of any papers that would cause trouble if they were found in our possession." The trio's eyes met, and they laughed, but their laughter wasn't kind. "Oh, Rena, I have one problem, or rather, something we need to address." Zanack looked around the room. This was the first time he had checked to make sure no one else was there. In other words, the topic was important and secret. "Actually, our brother is also receiving money from one of the 8 Fingers divisions. I thought we could use that information to get him disinherited, so we've been searching for their headquarters in the kingdom. So far we've found out it's in the capital. I'd like to add it to the raid list. That's fine. This is an opportunity to do a big sweep. If we miss this chance, who knows when another will come along. Which division is it? The drug division? That's not good. A few days ago I had Lachius and her team attack 3 villages that are cultivating narcotics. If we don't move fast, we might miss out." "Really? I see. Marquis Revan, how soon can you move?" "It'll be tough. For now I have an idea of some nobles who the 8 Fingers haven't corrupted yet, But as for houses we can trust for sure, there are probably only two. ILL needs some time to persuade them. Besides that, there is one other problem. And what might that be, Marquis Reven? The soldiers we have may not be a match for our enemy. Some humans, such as powerful adventurers, could take on an army. There were various theories about why so many adventurers outclassed ordinary humans. The most likely possibility was that in extreme circumstances, the flesh, or according to another hypothesis, the brain became abnormally stimulated, triggering a process akin to supercompensation and increasing their abilities. Others thought it was blessings from the gods or some kind of evolution due to magic exposure, but what all the theories had in common was the rapid improvement of physical, mental, magic, and or other capacities. The more powerful opponents one faced, the more often this improvement would occur, so it was especially frequent for adventurers who faced immensely powerful monsters with a diverse array of abilities. And if the 8 Fingers had such members, mere soldiers wouldn't stand a chance. But surely your bodyguards would be all right. Reven shook his head in response to Zanak's question.